in one way, this is a de-escalation in the sense that what America fears is a second front war in Israel and Lebanon. That there'll be another massive explosion like the one in Gaza. So by targeting American troops in another country, Iran can show its supporters that it's still acting.
Another part of the Middle East has lit up. American forces in Jordan were hit by a drone strike, killing 3 people and injuring many more. Joe Biden blames Iranian-backed forces in Syria and Iraq. Let's understand how this all fits together. We're joined by our expert in the region, Richard Spencer, the Times correspondent in Tel Aviv. Morning, Richard.
Good morning.
Why would Iran-backed militias from Syria and Iraq hit an American airbase in Jordan?
So this base is right in the northeast of Jordan, close to the Syrian border. That's a very important neck of the woods these days. If you follow a route from Iran to Lebanon, along which Iran is ferrying supplies for Hezbollah, its most important proxy militia, including missile parts. That route goes through southeast Syria, an area they managed to get control of, Iran effectively through its local militias in the fallout of the Syrian war. America also got a foothold there. It got an area of southeast Syria known as Al-Tanf, which it controls with some local rebel groups, former rebel groups from that civil war. Syria, of course, is still divided into several parts. This base in Jordan is just over the border and is part of this American project to monitor that corridor, if you like, and uses it to strike elements of that supply network. Israel strikes it even more. Lots of strikes from Israel on southern Syria along the route of this corridor. So that's why there have been a number of attacks on American bases in Iraq and Syria from these militias. It's the first time they've strayed over the border into Jordan, though, which, as you say, brings another country into this expanding conflict.
Yeah, and we're often heard of, we talked to Jim Townsend, who used to be working the Ministry of Defense in the US. We'll hear him later on. But a lot of people saying, Richard, well, Iran doesn't want to escalate these things too far. Iran doesn't want to provoke too much. And yet, if you look at the acts of the last 6 months, backing Hamas, the Houthis, Hezbollah, the thing with Pakistan, it does look like Iran is on maneuvers to a certain extent. Are they trying to just push so far but no further?
They have a long-term strategy, which is to isolate Israel, to turn Israel in on itself, and turn Israel away from its supporters in the West. It does this by various means. One of the means it is using is to make there a constant cost for the American presence in the Middle East, much of which is ultimately to do with Israel. And you can see it working. You can see that America's foreign policy is a big issue now in America. It's the traditional posture of American support for Israel and other states in the Middle East is under attack from both right and left. The left are fed up with the support of Israel, despite all the civilian deaths from the war in Gaza and similar previous wars. The right are arguing for a more isolationist policy by America, are not committed to the American empire, whatever we like to call it, the American role policing the world. So Iran just wants to keep this pressure on and slowly supports all these resistance groups across the region. It doesn't want to get them all involved in an immediate war, which they are afraid might get America sucked into a massive war against Iran itself. So they want to keep things boiling in different parts of the region. I think in one way this is a de-escalation in the sense that what America fears is a second front war in Israel and Lebanon. That there'll be another massive explosion like the one in Gaza. So by targeting American troops in another country, Iran can show its supporters that it's still acting, if you like, it's still taking part in this conflict without actually getting Israel into a second front war, which might, as I say, cause a united front between Israel and America against key Iranian assets,
Yeah,
as they say.
and presumably the America will do the dance as well. So when we're talking about Biden says they'll hit back at a place and time of their own choosing, but ultimately they'll pick another place to do that. Maybe they'll bomb a base in Syria. Maybe they'll take out a bit of infrastructure. Maybe they'll do some cyber targeting. That's how they hit back enough to look tough without escalating further.
Yeah, they're unlikely to launch a missile strike on Iran itself. I think that's the key thing. So yes, Biden has already had his military strike targets in precisely this area of Syria that I mentioned. This key little quadrant in the southeast where there are a lot of bases for these Iranian-backed militias. Trump did the same. In fact, it's a regular thing, bombing this little corner of Syria. So that's where I would expect to see retaliation take place.
Yeah, we'll see what happens over the course of the week. Richard, good to speak to you as ever. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's Richard Spencer, the Times correspondent in Tel Aviv.